The gospel reading is Luke chapter 13, beginning with the 31st verse. At that very hour, some Pharisees came and said to him, "Get away from here, for Herod wants to kill you." And he said to them, "Go and tell that fox, behold, I cast out demons and perform cures today and tomorrow, and the third day I finish my course. Nevertheless, I must go on my way today and tomorrow and the day following. For it cannot be that a prophet should perish away from Jerusalem. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, killing the prophets and stoning those who are sent to you. How often would I have gathered your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings? And you would not. Behold, your house is forsaken, and I tell you, you will not see me until you say, 'Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord.'" This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
When I was a little boy, I liked to watch, I don't know what the right word is, conveyances. We're being at my grandparents' house, and we'd hear a whistle train in the distance, and my cousins and I would go ambling down the hill into the little valley where the train track came by, and then train would come, and the engine, and then car after car after car after car, and we'd count them as it whizzed by one after another. Finally, the caboose and the sound would trail off into the distance. Loved watching trains. When I was a little boy, it was still back in the dark ages before airport security and everything, and we used to go to the airport and we'd watch airplanes take off, land. You younger people thinking, those dudes had a boring life. You didn't have so many cable channels and internet, and you have to trust me, it was cool. And as I would watch a train go by or a plane take off, I think as a boy I fantasized about traveling to faraway places. Traveling, going away somewhere. We could think of the Bible really as some kind of conveyance that takes us to a faraway place. Sometimes when you go to a faraway place, you discover your true self. Sometimes when you're where you are, you need to go someplace else. Let's think about that. These scripture readings, you'll discover by the end of the sermon that I didn't choose them, and you might rather hear a sermon on some other passages, but these are the ones for the day, so here it goes. The first one, Philippians. It's late in the day in Paul's life. He's nearing the end of his life. He is working as a tanner under house arrest on the banks of the Tiber in Rome. And you and I think we live in difficult times, and if you think we live in difficult times, that just means we are a bunch of sissies. Because in history, people have lived in really difficult times, and Paul certainly did. When Paul lived in Rome, Nero was the emperor, and that was an iron-fisted, cruel reign of terror. And the economy was worse than horrific. And Paul knew what it was to live in that world. And in his closing days, he remembered friends of his, very close friends back in Asia, and he wrote them a letter. He called a secretary, he dictated a letter, had it sent to them. Probably took weeks for it to arrive there in Philippi. Those friends that probably he treasured most from all of his travels. And he writes to them knowing that their world is difficult. He wants to encourage them. He wants to stir faith in them in what he knows are difficult times. And what's interesting is, as he laments his world, as he laments the world in which the Philippians lived, it's almost as if he has a crystal ball and he can look directly at us in America in the year 2013. Because what he describes as their world describes us flawlessly. And the three things he says about people back in those days, they should give us pause. The first is he said, people's God is their belly. Now, I know you came to church today hoping, James Howell will tell me that my true God is my belly. But it's true. We're people that our God is our belly. That's an indelicate way to put it, but it really is true. You're a consumer. From day one, you're told you're a consumer. Your life is about consuming. It's what you put into yourself. It's what you accumulate. You are a consumer. I was reading a book the other day by a theologian. He did this marvelous thing. He said, let me take you to the most sacred religious site in the United States of America. He says, come with me. He said, let's start high up in the air, and you can look down. You can see it's a very large building, but they have allotted much parking because many people will want to come to this very sacred site. And then we come down and we enter the building, and we're greeted there warmly, and there are high soaring ceilings because it's a great religious place. And there's iconography, symbolism all over the walls to draw us in. And then like those old medieval cathedrals, there are chapels off to each side, and you enter one of the chapels, and there you find the blessing that you came to this religious place for. And you take your offering to the priest, and he thanks you for your offering, and you walk out with a blessing that you, maybe you're realizing I'm describing a shopping mall. He said, don't think it's just a symbol. He said the shopping mall really is the high religious institution of our day. We're consumers. We're measured by consuming. Now, somebody like me, I try to get off. I say, I hate malls. I hate malls, but I'm a good husband. I should share this with you. For Valentine's Day, I went to Jared. We'd heard those ads for years, and finally I thought, because, the woman always swoons. He went to Jared. So I went to Jared. And Lisa should swoon over this because it's at a mall. And I hate malls, so he went to Jared. See, I'm an anti-mall guy, but I can't really get off the hook. We always do that, don't we? When we see what's wrong with society, we say, that's not me, that's somebody else. I can ding the mall people all day long. I'm very much a consumer. My mall sits on my desk. It is Amazon.com. And it's a better mall than the mall. We're just consumers. Don't you get tired of being a consumer? All the ads, they just debase you and degrade you because you're just a consumer, and they appeal to your base. Don't you get tired of that? It's why during Lent we ask you to give up something for Lent so you can at least say on something. On anything, I'm not a consumer. At least temporarily. I can stop being a consumer on something. Paul says their God is their belly. Second thing he says is their glory. They glory in their shame. They glory in their shame. I could go on for about 3 or 4 hours about that, but you don't need me to. Or maybe you do need me to. Because what's happened is things that through most of human history have been regarded as shameful, we just accept as normal. And it's just cool, even. It's hip. You just see it everywhere between sexual mores and people's behavior and the way that people talk and treat one another. Once upon a time, they would shudder in embarrassment, and now it's just, hey, nothing. Just the creeping normalization of evil. We are a people who have forgotten how to blush. And if you nod too enthusiastically and say, yeah, that's how they are in society, you've forgotten how to blush over yourself. All of us are these people who glory in our shame. Third thing, Paul says their minds are set on earthly things. That describes me, you, and everybody you know to a T. Our minds really are set on earthly things. Show me the money. It's what I've got. It's my possessions. It's my house. It's the real things. That's what we're about. It's earthly things. I was trying to think this week, what are the earthly things that our minds are set on? And actually, the primary earthly thing that our minds are set on, that would be me. Not for you. For you, it's you. But for me, it's me. You see what I'm saying? The earthly thing our minds are set on, it's me. It's up to me. I've got to make it happen. It's all about me. Don't you get tired of yourself? Some of you are thinking, no, not really. Don't you get tired of it? It's always up to you. The pressure's always on you. Our minds are set on earthly things. Our minds are set on ourselves. What's interesting is that Paul, he sees us so clearly. He exposes us, and he doesn't slam his fist, and he doesn't wag a finger. What he does, did you hear it in Philippians? He weeps. He's so sad for us because it could be so different. It could be so much better. Like when you love someone and they're just hurting themselves, you weep. Paul weeps. Don't you get tired of being a consumer? Don't you get tired of all the shame? Don't you get tired of your self. Jesus also, late in the day, he's nearing the end of his life. He finally has made the journey all the way to Jerusalem. He climbs up on the Mount of Olives. He looks across. Here's the harder part of the sermon to hear. He looks across into the holy city of Jerusalem. It's God's home. It's the sacred temple. It's the place where God dwells. It's the place where people are supposed to go and meet God. It's the place where people are supposed to go and be forgiven. It's the place where people are supposed to go to become holy. And Jesus looks over at that city, and what he sees is, well, he sees failure. And he doesn't call down a meteor shower on the city. He weeps over his beloved city because it has failed. And I thought about that failure, the failure that he talks about. He says, you've stoned and killed the prophets. That's happened through human history. People have spoken out for God, and they've been killed for it. Today, this is actually interesting. Today, when God sends a prophet and somebody speaks a hard word to the people of God, they don't get stoned or killed. They just get ignored. People just yawn, and they just kind of let it go, and they just ignore it because their minds are set on earthly things, because they glory in their shame, because their God is their belly. How should we say it? The failure of the church. I know that's what you came hoping. I hope James today will talk about the failure of the church. That'd be a lovely topic for a sermon today. And our failure it's a sneaky one, isn't it? Because we're such a successful church. I mean, the place is packed with wonderful people. So how could you say the church is a failure? And I've got to tell you, everywhere I go, I mean, in this city, but across the state, even other places, I'll meet someone, and if I say, I'm the senior pastor of Myers Park United Methodist Church, you know what they say? They say, whew, you are one cool dude. And I am a cool dude. But it's beside the point. You know, and what people say is, it's all true. They say, oh, your church is beautiful. Or people will say, I know some very nice people that go to your church. And there are some very nice people who come to our church. It's a lovely thing, and we all enjoy it, and it's just so nice. Thinking, like, back then they killed the prophets with stones. I think we kill people today by just being innocuous. You know what I'm saying? It's like church is like a nice thing nice people do with other nice people, which is nice. It's just so nice, isn't it? But I'll tell you why I've been thinking about this. This week, I spent 3 days in Shane Page's hometown of Gastonia. Why do people laugh when I say that? And I spent 3 days in Gastonia. What we were doing in Gastonia is we were interviewing people who wish to be ordained, trying to decide whether we're going to ordain them or not. And what's really interesting to me about people at that point, like they haven't like had a job yet. They're like, God's called me. I want to serve God. Yeah, if you took them aside and said, let me tell you what this job is. What this job is you will manage an organization where nice people do nice things with other nice people, and they'll all just be very happy. You know what all those people would say? They'd say, no thanks. That is not why I signed up. They'd say, I signed up because I was on fire for Jesus, and I thought we could change the world. So I just have to ask us today, what are we doing here? It's very comfortable, lovely. We really enjoy being here. I enjoy being here. I enjoy walking around saying, I'm pastor of Myers Park, and people say, you're a cool dude. I enjoy all that. But I've got a different dream. That dream is that if I said, I'm the pastor of Myers Park Methodist, people would say, oh, goodness. Oh, my goodness. Those are the people. Like when Paul traveled around the world, like there were riots that were touched off, and people said, these are the people who've come to turn the world upside down. I'd love it if they said, Myers Park, those are the people that come to turn the world upside down. They're the people who cannot rest easy over the fact that we live in a consumer culture where it's all about me, buying, shopping, where shame is glorified. We're the people that can't bear that, and we know we've got a lot of resources and a lot of talent and a lot of energy, and we're not going to put up with it any longer. I think God's calling us to be that kind of a church. The people going into the ministry, they're not interested in going through the motions and being nice and it being convenient. They do not wish to spend their years standing in front of people who say, he preached a nice sermon today. This is not a nice sermon today. They don't wish to do that. They want to be part of an organization that is the people of God that believe that they can change the world. And that's why God put them here. It's hard, and they're fully ready for it to be hard. Once upon a time, you could get killed for being a Christian. Paul was imprisoned, and not long after that, he was killed for being a Christian. In the history of the church, we've had martyrs. People said, I'm going to follow Jesus no matter what it costs me. And it cost them their very lives. What kind of church is God calling us to be? You got nice people doing nice things, a little club, it's fun, nice, pleasant, easy. I think God yawns, weeps. You're missing it. What it could be. You're missing what it could be. C.S. Lewis wrote a great book that I love. It's kind of this imaginative fancy. It's called The Great Divorce. And in the book, he imagines hell, not as this place of like, fire and brimstone and all this, but he imagines hell is this like kind of dreary bureaucracy of a place where, it's just kind of dull down there. It's kind of gray and cloudy every day. And the motto in hell is, and people say it every day, they say, my will be done. Like that's the definition of being in hell. My will be done. But God still loves the people in hell in C.S. Lewis's book. And so what he does is God sends a train down to hell every day. And the station master gets out and says, I want you to get on board. I want you to go to heaven. And to go to heaven, you just have to do one thing. You have to stop saying, my will be done, but Lord, your will be done. And day after day after day, God sends that train to hell, and the people say, we're going to stay here. It is very comfortable here. We enjoy our friends here. And we're just going to stay here. My will be done. And the train leaves. But then God keeps sending it every day. I think God's sending a train to each one of us into this church. God's saying, get out of the station and get on my train. I've got some important stuff to do. And I try to imagine those scenes. I think back in World War I, how soldiers went off to war. It had to be like this, that in cities, it'd be the day for soldiers to depart, to begin their junket, to get to Europe, to fight for their country. And the families and friends who gathered at the train station, there'd be hugs, and so they held hands and prayed, and he put those boys on those trains, and I'm sure those boys were excited and scared to death and full of anticipation and trembling. They got on the train and they waved goodbye. They went off to try to do a noble thing. I don't know. I think God's calling us to get on board. Stop with this just playing church. It doesn't really work for the people that are 25 years old and they've fallen in love with Jesus and they're giving their lives to become ministers. And it doesn't really work for you either, does it? It's too droll. It's too vapid. You need some adventure. You need something that really matters. We can be God's church. Just got to get on board. Head out. Thanks be to God.